Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Legal Score. I am your host, Sonia. Happy Saturday, happy Mother's Day weekend to everybody watching. This is an abbreviated edition of the Legal Score. It's our 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time edition. I am live, so when you see this video, come on and say hello. And also, we are remembering all of our fallen soldiers this year that are Memorial Day, actually, for this entire month. And so, Memorial Day as well. And we are dedicating all of our shows this month to our great producer in the sky, Mac McGrath. So, good afternoon. This is the edition that we focus on legal news. This is the legal score. And I'm here every Saturday at 4. Today I'm a little late, had a family emergency earlier today. So just getting a chance to get in and get settled. So hoping everyone is doing well. Now, everyone knows early voting is going on in a lot of jurisdictions. And so it's very important. In fact, I just came from voting early. The first case we'll talk about is the Louisiana case, but it's a Supreme Court case and it concerns our voting rights. It's Louisiana versus Calais. And for especially minorities and people in rural areas where you talk about redistricting, I should say, of voting boundaries. The core issue is Louisiana's core congressional map. They're the ones that started this all. The case asks about states' efforts to comply with the Voting Rights Act becoming unconstitutional and racial gerrymandering under the Equal Protection Clause. So before we go any further, I am not an attorney. I am a law student. And so all views are my personal views, and I am not giving or receiving or soliciting legal advice. And by the way, just wrapped up officially my full first year of law school. So thank you, everyone, for supporting me in those efforts. And I know that we talk a little bit about that from time to time. So here we go. Now, according to this actual case, this ruling that has everyone in an uproar, including former President Barack Obama, and just a list of high profile Democrats and even some Republicans have brows raised on this. A prior court actually found that Louisiana's 2022 congressional map likely violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act because it actually did not include a second majority Black district. And Louisiana then drew a lot of new maps to try to correct the ways. But that new map was also challenged as unconstitutional and racially motivated as well. The Supreme Court actually decided on this case April 29th of this year. This is nationally important because it affects how far states actually go in using race to create voting districts that comply with the Voting Rights Act. Now, for those who may be viewing that are not into voting or may not be affected by this, this is still very important because in practical terms, it could actually make it harder for states to draw minority opportunity districts without facing any of the constitutional challenges. You guys know the First Amendment and therefore, and so excuse me, and so forth. And so that is one of the things that has to be looked at today. States may actually need to consider race when trying to look at the voting district. This is to avoid any dilution of minority voting power. Like, this is so crazy that we cannot be in 2026 without continuously regressing. So the individual states are now having to look to see, okay, is this a minority district that we have drawn this way? Actually, the second thing is the equal protection side. The Constitution actually limits race-based decisions. I bet you guys didn't know that. The Constitution, I'll say it again, actually limits race-based decision-making by the government. The big question here is, when does lawful Voting Rights Act compliance become unlawful racial gerrymandering? So commentators are already describing the decision as likely to trigger more state court and federal court fights over maps in places such as Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Georgia. You guys figured it out, the South. And this is the area that's known as the good old boy South. This is the area that during this current administration was under microscopic eye to see just what was going to happen in these voting, because it was imperative on how the South voted. The rappers always say the South got something to say. Well, in voting, the South continues to have something to say, and it's imperative that minorities stand up and vote. This case is also about the future balance between minority voting protection and the court's restrictions on race-conscious districting. So you have to look at that. You have to think about that from a future perspective. You have to think of, especially us minorities, is my district going to be rezoned? Because in my case, personally speaking, here in Atlanta, the metropolis is in certain areas predominantly African American, predominantly Black. So are you saying, courts and voter writing act, that you're going to come in and allow a redistricting to split this area, even though these people actually live here? And some people could say, well, it's about actually balancing the act so that everyone is represented equally. But if you don't have anyone that's not of that specific race within a certain mileage, it makes no sense to even redistrict at all. So stay tuned on that one. Another Louisiana case. Louisiana has been really busy in the Supreme Court. The mifepristone abortion pill access. The FDA actually was on the defendant side on this one, with Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, being on the plaintiff side. Whether or not the FDA rules allow this mifepristone to be prescribed, this specific medication for abortion pill access through telemedicine and mail to patients, can remain in effect. Now, you guys know when the pandemic came, a lot of people saw any medical attention they needed, by telehealth, via Zoom, whatever platforms your physician actually used, that kept people from coming in that had COVID symptoms so that they were able to be treated at home without coming in and exposing everyone else. And then that practice just kept on. And it actually was beneficial, especially to people that have challenges with transportation and mobility to get into a doctor's office. And so this was actually something that shocked me, because I didn't realize that you could actually get the abortion pill by telehealth. And so this is what this whole case is about. This law actually looking into this. The Supreme Court actually temporarily restored access to mail order mifepristone after the Fifth Circuit had restricted it. Justice Alito issued an administrative stay while the court considers emergency filing. So let me explain a little bit about that, what that means. And everyone say hello. I see you guys watching. Please say hello. I am live. And weigh in. Just say good afternoon and happy Mother's Day to all. So basically what happened, people were getting this prescription. They were just doing their telehealth visit, via video with their doctor. Doctor was like, okay, you're pregnant. I don't know if there was a positive pregnancy test on file, because for all we know, any of us know, it could have been, hey, I'm calling you up. I took a pregnancy test, it's positive, and I am interested in an abortion. And so can you prescribe me this, that, and the third? And doctor doesn't validate the prescription or anything. So this is why the Supreme Court is looking at this, because if you're not pregnant and you are receiving this as a prescription and you're really not pregnant, you can now resell this on the black market. And I think this is where there's a control issue of medication, because now we have to make sure, that the medication is being used by the prescribed person for the prescribed reason. And so not only that, it's a lot going on both sides, Democrat, Republican, and conservative, regarding abortion as a whole. And now to have this abortion pill just floating around is insane. Mifepristone is actually used in large share of medication nationwide for abortion. So this isn't just specifically to Louisiana. It's this restriction from the Louisiana Supreme Court could affect access even in states where abortion remains legal. So they're mandating or trying to mandate by, infiltrating this emergency stay. They're like, okay, we're going to reinstate it for now, but we're just looking through all the filings to see where we can restrict. And once we are able to, discern how to do that, we're going to possibly go back to restriction and people will have to go in person. But like I said, this is not just a Louisiana issue. This is nationwide. So this is going to affect everyone because this is a Supreme Court decision in the Fifth Circuit. So Louisiana actually argued on their side that the FDA's relaxed rules are unlawful and conflict with state abortion restrictions. Drug manufacturers argue that the lower court ruling would disrupt nationwide access and create confusion for providers, patients, and pharmacies. So they're like, hey, if you guys stop this, my patient may not be able to get in person to be seen to get this. And now days are going, weeks are going, this baby is maturing, and there is a cutoff for when abortions can be had. This is a major administrative law and abortion access case centered on FDA authority, state challenges, and national medication access. I personally have my own views about abortion. I'm a Christian. Everyone knows that knows me. So I don't advocate for that side, but I do know that there are medical reasons where people would need to be able to access this medication. So we have to stay tuned on that. And we got Trump in another lawsuit, the Learning Resources Incorporated versus Trump and the presidential tariff power that he has been having. This is whether or not the president can actually use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose tariffs. Now, for all of us that shop on Shein, Temu, and all these places, even on some things that we get from Amazon, if they have been made outside of the United States, it has been a hassle trying to get things. I remember hearing where boats were just sitting there with the goods, but because the taxes had not been paid, the tariffs, I should say, had not been paid because they had been increased by Trump and his administration, we were not getting the things that we were ordering as consumers. Additionally, the gas prices are through the freaking roof right now, and they are expected to go up even more. Now, Georgia has a moratorium in place that is set to expire on May 19th of this year. And with that lifting of that moratorium, they are expecting another 33 cents to be added per gallon. Now, if you're like me, I drive a vehicle that requires premium. That's number 93. So I'm already sitting at $4 and I believe it was 70 cents the other day, $4.70 already. And it seems to be going up every week, even though there's a moratorium on the tax for gas per gallon. The previous week it was $4.60. So we're already going up 13 cents. And then next week, after the 19th has passed, another 33 cents will be added. And then that's not even including whatever the taxes are. So I'm going to be well past $5 and everything is going left. So not only these tariffs that Trump has imposed for foreign, you are punishing the citizens of this country. Spirit Airlines this week went out of business abruptly. Literally, over 17,000 employees are jobless. A lot of them had a little subtle warning, but not like a hard warning, kind of like, you would expect it. In fact, their flight attendants were stranded. Wherever they had flown to, they were stuck there. Other airlines, Delta, American, Frontier, JetBlue, all of these big ones stepped in and volunteered to fly back flight attendants and crew back to their respective homes. There were hundreds of thousands of customers that were stranded. Like if you had gotten a round trip, now you're stuck wherever you are. And so the same airlines were offering a $99 one-way return for a $99 on some airlines. It was $199 on others. They would have like a cap on how much they were going to charge just to get everybody back home where they needed to be. But they were telling people, and I'm telling you in case you have not done this, do not cancel your flight. If you have a Spirit airline ticket, You have to dispute it with your credit card company or your bank, because if you cancel it, there's no customer service or anybody. When I tell you they just came to a screeching halt like nothing ever existed. 30 years, 34 years, no crashes, no fatalities, no major injuries. Kudos to Spirit Airlines, even though over the last several years they had stopped even providing water. It was pretty apparent, but it's because of this rising fuel cost. That's exactly what I'm talking about now. So we are being punished as consumers. We are being placed in positions where we cannot even get around. And it's about to be graduation season, wedding season, things like that. People are traveling. It's the summer where kids are out of school, young adults are out of school, and we are having a nightmare with fuel prices that are kind of like what we've seen back, I guess, in the mid 2000s. And it's always during a Gulf War. But a lot of these boats are sitting out there in the straits and they're not allowed to pass with this fuel. Now, the Supreme Court actually held that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act does not authorize the president to impose any tariffs whatsoever. So the fact that Trump has taken it upon himself to impose all of these, taxes on China, like he likes to say, it's really only hurting the consumers. This is a major separation of powers case because tariffs are actually traditionally tied to Congress's power over commerce and taxation. And the ruling actually limits Trump's ability to even use these emergency powers statutes as a shortcut for broad economic policy. The IEEPA, which is what it's called, base tariffs were terminated after this decision, according to trade law analysis. And a lot of countries went ahead and folded and paid this money because they just needed to be able to get their things shipped. They needed to go ahead and continue with their economic situation because they had them in a trap hole. They had their economic system for these countries that we have been conducting business with for years in a neck hold. Like they could not do anything. They were frozen. This case actually restricts unilateral presidential tariff power and reinforces that major tariff authority only belongs and must come from Congress only, and not a president, not the one that's here now, not the one that was there, and not any in the future. This is a congressional decision. All right, so Monsanto Company versus Durnell, product liability case about pesticides. You guys know it's summertime. A lot of cases have been floating around about pesticides causing cancer. Unfortunately, the longer I've been here, the more I'm starting to see more and more people that don't have a predisposition, that have not a family history or anything like that with cancer, getting exposed to all these elements in the air that are causing the ailment of cancer. Now, this specific pesticide, because a lot of people, do their own lawn care or whatever. This is about whether or not a federal pesticide law actually blocks the state law failure to warn lawsuits over Roundup. Now, that's the one that kills the weeds, and make sure no bugs get on your nice grass and things like that. The Supreme Court actually granted certiorari on that and heard an argument on April 27th. And the case is actually remaining pending. The sad thing about this is if they decide not to impose, there are thousands of people right now that have cases pending that have gotten cancer, and they're wanting Roundup held accountable. They're wanting them to warn consumers, and they have not done that. There's no warning on there. And that is a huge product liability case. And in Georgia, product liability can see substantial punitive damages as well as regular damages as a whole. Hi, Ricky Beavers. How are you? Good to see you today. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on. I hope you've hit the subscribe button and the like button. And thank you for saying hi. All right, guys. So then Carroll v. Trump. Now, this is so weird. This is right up my alley. I just literally took my torts exam, my torts final for the class, And a huge part of the exam was about defamation. The whole semester we've talked about defamation, products liability, strict liability, things like that, because this was towards part two. Well, this court issue that came up is whether Trump can delay payment of an $83 million defamation judgment while pursuing further appeal, potentially including a Supreme Court review. Now, you guys will remember this, okay? This is about all of his SA, pending cases that he settled out in a civil manner. Now, you may have pushed those off criminally, but the victim still wants to be paid civilly. So this is a defamation, civil liability, damages in the scope of presidential immunity for statements made within office. Now, a lot of people don't realize the president has ultimate immunity, absolute immunity. He can say what he wants to say about anybody, anything, and he is protected, whether or not it's true or not. That's the thing about defamation that people don't really realize, and I didn't know until I took the class, is that when you defame someone or speak falsely about them, you and I do not have that protection, and we can be sued. But public officials, and especially the presidential official, is protected from whatever he says, because in that capacity, he's president, whether he's speaking on TV, whether he's at home, whether he's in the White House, wherever he is, he's president 24/7. And so his speech has been protected. But this is a high profile civil case with broader implications for whether or not his status is going to affect his personal defamation, because the things that he's commenting on, you guys, are things that were from the past before he was foolishly elected by some of us that did not realize what we were doing. And I'm saying us because no, I did not vote for him, but I'm saying in general, everyone I know literally regrets making that decision. But because now he's in that capacity, he's immune. And so he is literally taking advantage of it. I'm sure his legal team has already told him, dude, you can say whatever you want to say about anybody. No one can touch you right now. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out, because, there's certain people that think they are above the law. I want to talk to you guys about the Stefon Diggs case. That's the last case I'm going to talk to you guys about today. I know you guys heard about it. He was found not guilty of assaulting and choking and all this other stuff against his chef, Jamila Adams. And she is absolutely done working in the industry. Like, she will not be hired by another celebrity ever. Like, I don't know what she plans to do as a chef, but this was really bad for Stefon Diggs. I know last night I spoke and I said Buffalo Bills. I meant to say the New England Patriots. I feel like even though he did have a year contract, I really feel that he would have been renewed, especially with them going all the way to the Super Bowl. He would have been renewed for another season, and they could come back and still sign him, but he was not, because of these allegations. This young lady literally had no proof. It was almost like she concocted a story just for the fame and the money. And now everyone knows who you are because your face has been plastered all over social media. Law and Crime was definitely up there with their cameras. All the local affiliates in Boston, Massachusetts area, the northeastern area, period, were all filming. So everyone knows who she is. And you literally accused this sports figure for fame and for games. So I don't know. The best thing I guess she could do now is maybe, get her Instagram going. I'm sure she'll get a lot of traction on there for a little while. But Stefon Diggs is, of course, declared not guilty. And in Massachusetts, I heard them say something that was very interesting to me. In reading the verdict and the closing comments by the clerk, they actually advised Stefon that if he wanted to get this sealed and, so that no one could look into it, I guess, in the future and it wouldn't count against him, that his attorneys, whatever, they had a certain amount of time to go in and seal this record. Well, my only thing is this. If you're sealing it, but it's already been broadcast everywhere to millions of people that have seen this and followed this trial, how is it really ever sealed? And if he's already, I just didn't understand it, because you usually seal records when there's some type of conviction under general first offender type activities or actions in certain states that allow offenders that have like one felony or one type charge period, they get it, sealed, but it's after it's already been, kind of disposed of and whatever terms of the disposition were fulfilled. I don't really understand. I know Massachusetts is a Commonwealth state, so they probably do things a lot different. But I just didn't understand, even if he was found guilty, you really can't seal it because you can't undo the publishing of these YouTube videos and all of these airing through various media outlets. So anyway, kudos to Mike, kudos to Stefon Diggs, and may he, may he, get him an actual new contract here soon. Now, last night I told you guys that Michael Penix Jr. had gotten married. Congratulations to he and Olivia. And there was an issue, like people were circulating during the reception. He was swag surfing. It's an Atlanta thing. They do it at every Falcon game. I mean, it is almost the mantra of being from Atlanta. And even if you moved here like me, and I've lived here like now longer than I lived home in North Carolina, swag and surf, but he is recovering from an ACL injury. And so the question came up, could he be fined by the league for, having conduct that is, not becoming, not advantageous for him, detrimental to him while he's recovering from this ACL injury? Now, he had this injury last November. So generally speaking, they say ACL, not ATL, actually have about an 18-month recovery time. And so when you're looking at that, you're like, okay, it has not been 18 months, but modern medicine, he probably feels better really quick. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. He tore his ACL and he was like, I'll be back before the season is over. He came back. They didn't really play him a whole lot, but he was out there and he's like double Michael Penix's age. So there's that. However, I don't believe, from when I was reading up, because I told you guys I'd have some information on you about that. Basically, I don't think that the Falcons would really lay into whether or not he danced and celebrated at his own wedding, just making sure he doesn't have any further injury and also assuring that he's ready to go as projected. Now, if they team doctor or whatever decide to, check him out and say, why is your recovery delayed? Oh, well, look, wait a minute. You were jumping, dancing, swag surfing for at least an hour on this video we have from your wedding. And congratulations to you for the wedding. But in that conduct, you've now damaged our goods, because you got to think he has a contract with the Atlanta Falcons, and therefore he is covered. He is their merchandise. They want to take care of their contract, what they vested in, and he's, out here recklessly regarding it. I remember back in like the 90s, like people used to have like the Palmolive dish detergent commercials and the legs stockings commercials. I heard that they would insure their hands, when they were showing their hands on the magazines and things like that, because they couldn't have not even a scratch on their hand when it came time to taking the pictures or the video for Palmolive or, these hand wash. It was showing that the dishwasher and detergent was also safe for the hands. And in the leg stockings, I think it was Tina Turner that actually said her legs were insured, and everybody knew Tina Turner had legs for days. And so she was, advertising these stockings, these pantyhose, and they insure that. So it's the same thing, just modernized, that the Atlanta Falcons want to make sure, because Kevin Stefanski has not said yay or nay yet, that Michael Penix is ready to go when he's supposed to be ready to go. So we'll see. As I like to say, the verdict is still out on that one. Tomorrow morning, join us for the Sunday Morning Big Sports Show. We got B, James, Keith Angle, Jack Hirsch, and then they usually have a whole group of other gentlemen, or sometimes I join them when I can. They will be starting off tomorrow morning, Mother's Day, at 8 a.m. before church. Join them for that, and a plethora of shows throughout. Got the BW flicks and everything. And also, it's a good time for me to tell you all, starting today, the Stonecrest Church of Christ here in the Atlanta area, McDonough area, is having the Issachar Conference. And that is starting today. You can watch it at your leisure. You can go on my timeline to get links to register, or you can go to their YouTube channel, stonecrestcoc.org, or on YouTube, they're on Stonecrest Church of Christ, and you'll be able to watch the Issachar Conference. I have a segment on there where I'm speaking, and I was so blessed to be joined by brothers and sisters throughout this country as we celebrate Christ and as we give gratitude throughout. And kudos to Dr. Richard Barclay for putting together such an amazing event. All right. So yeah, Ricky says he be acting weird. All right, you guys have a good one. Thank you so much for the likes of love, and good night.